Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on a Thursday. The Thursday before the Steelers take on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers looking to show Matt LaFleur, his former head coach, and Jordan Love, the guy that he mentored there in Green Bay, that he is still the master and Jordan Love is still the apprentice. It's going to be a very fun show on Sunday, guys. But today we also have a very jam-packed show for you guys with a bunch of great Steelers content. First up, the latest Steelers news and rumors. Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator for the Steelers, took the podium today, had some very interesting comments that we're going to be breaking down in our first segment, as well as some more injury updates as we prepare for this Week 8 matchup versus Green Bay. Then I have two game-changing adjustments that the Pittsburgh Steelers can make to their defense immediately that could potentially catapult this defense to play like a top 10 unit the rest of the year. And if that happens, guys, that would make the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl contenders, given that the offense can keep playing the way that they're playing. Then we'll kind of take stock in where the quarterback draft class kind of looks like at this point, around midway through the college football season. I'll let you guys know my favorite guys. I have 6 quarterbacks that I would maybe consider taking in round 1 right now. We'll be talking about those quarterbacks in our third segment, and then we'll finish up today's live show with your questions. The Week 8 mailbag will be coming up at the end of today's show, so if you haven't already, get your questions down there in the comment section using hashtag Steelers in the chat. If you don't use hashtag Steelers in your question, producer Ponzi is not going to be able to see it, and we can't get it on the show. So, for example, go down there in the live chat, and in one comment, you say hashtag Steelers. Will Pittsburgh figure it out on defense, or whatever question that you have, and I'll answer that question once we get to the mailbag today. And if you guys want to get your question on the show guaranteed, all right, because we have so many questions, we can't fit everybody's question in the mailbag, but if you want to guarantee or get your question on the mailbag this week, if you donate any dollar amount, $2, $5, $10, $20, and Super Chats, we'll make sure to get you on the mailbag this week, all right? So if you really have a good question and you really want me to answer it, you guys can send in any dollar amount Super Chat, and we will make sure to get you on the show. Now I want to see who the real ones are. Down there in the comment section, we've already got 125 people watching live. Spam those me's. The real ones know. Once you get into this live chat room, the first thing that you should do is click that thumbs up icon. So I want to see the people that have already clicked that thumbs up icon. We got my lovely fiance, Cassie Voth. Everyone say hi to Cassie for me. We got Glenn, Daryl, we got Czar Craig, Voxy, Fluffy, Glenn, JT Clover, Robert Kirkpatrick, my man is here. We got Paul Boone, we got Michael, we got WV, we got Howie, got Knight, we got Grayson, we got Will, we got Charles, we got George Pearson, we got Grayson Walter, we've got Charles, got George, Otis, Scott, we got Eddie Robinson. Got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some ball here this afternoon. And with that, let's bring on our producer here. Mr. Ponzi is here. Now, Ponzi, the big discussion in Steelers Nation after that really embarrassing defensive performance versus the Bengals last week is, will the Steelers figure it out on defense? Because that's not the only tough performance that they've had on defense this season. They've been up and down all season long. And, you know, the big question is, will Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin eventually figure out how to play with this defense and with this personnel that they have, accumulated with a lot of veteran, expensive pieces, right? You got T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward and Patrick Queen and Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay and all these expensive pieces. Yet, you know, you have a below-average defense in the National Football League right now. Let's just tell what it is. This has been a below-average defense for most of the season to this point, and, you know, that's a little bit of a concern, all right? But, you know, I think that there's still a lot of talent here. What do you think? Do you think that this Steelers coaching staff figures out how to play defense here this year?
I mean, call it copium, call it hopium, whatever you want to call it, but I think, you know, the answer is leaning more towards yes. I think that you have a lot of talented players. You got a lot of savvy players, some savvy veterans in Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey. I think that this team, you know, and especially these, you know, defensive-minded coach and Mike Tomlin, they've already made adjustments on the other side of the ball. So, I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to look at the defense and play some schemes that actually utilize the talent on this team. There's a lot of talent on the team, and I think that, you know, maybe I'm just breathing too much hopium. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe, they can make more adjustments and, figure it out. But I mean, I gotta say yes here.
Yeah, I think the way I'll answer this question is that they better. Or, I think that we got to be talking about Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin and parting ways with those guys because these are their guys. These are the guys that they have brought into this defense, all right? And it's the most expensive defense in the National Football League, okay? So if you're not getting it done and you have a below average defense and your defense is the reason why, not the offense, you're a defensive head coach, you put all this money on defense and your defense is the reason why you are held back as a football team, I'm sorry, man. That's unacceptable to me, and I'm willing to give Mike the rest of this season here to see if he can figure it out and to see if Terrell Austin can figure out how to play this defense so that they can play at a top 10 level because, guys, if this defense can play at a top 10 level and we know they have the talent to be able to do that, if you're playing with your offense playing as good as it is right now, they've got a bona fide top 10 offense in the league right now. They have arguably the best rushing offense in the league right now since they started going to those jumbo personnel packages. Rodgers is slinging that thing. They're just doing a really good job on offense. So if you can get this defense playing at a commensurate level, you're going to be one of the more balanced football teams in the entire National Football League. And if you can figure out a way to get this Steelers defense playing better more consistently, then I think we're talking about a team that could beat anybody in the National Football League and could legitimately compete for a Lombardi trophy this year. But you got to get there, right? You got to figure out a way to make this defense work. And if they don't, it's going to hold this team back. And if that's the case, Ponzi, and if that's where we're at the end of the season, this team goes like 9-8 or something like that, 8-9, and like this team was held back by the most expensive defense in the league by a defensive head coach. I think
be some question marks there.
I think we got to at least consider, maybe trading Tomlin away for a first-round pick. But I'm willing to give Mike the rest of the season to figure it out. Hopefully they eventually do. $2 from my man Cody Greenwood with a $2 super chat. Says, driving cross-country to see the Steelers. That's a real one right there, Cody. Let us know in the chat, Cody, where are you from and where are you driving to? Obviously, you're driving to Pittsburgh to watch the Steelers this weekend, but, obviously we kind of want to know, how long of a drive is it? I'm guessing it's probably somewhere in the West Coast because, obviously, if you're saying cross-country, that means, you're going from the West Coast over to the East Coast. So I'm interested to see where you're from there, Cody. Then Bernard with a 2 says, are you worried about A-Rod falling off like Russ did? Well, listen, man, we saw what Russell Wilson did last year, and he had a really good first 6 weeks and really the first 5 weeks of his Steelers tenure. And he actually had a better record in his first 6 games compared to Aaron Rodgers. He had more yards per game. He had more yards per attempt. He had less interceptions. You could look at these stats here, and I wouldn't necessarily say this means Russell Wilson's better. I would say maybe this is a reason to, maybe pause with Aaron Rodgers and maybe not make any declarative statements like the Steelers should definitely bring him back next year or that they should give him an extension or something along those lines, Bernard. But listen, man, I think, and I said this during our free agency coverage and why I wanted to bring in Rodgers over Russell Wilson and bringing him back was because I think Rodgers is the smarter. I think he is the better overall player. I think he moves around better than Russ does at this point. His feet are like a boxer's feet, man. Like he's got really, really quick feet in the pocket, even at his age. And, he can certainly rip that thing down the field. And, Russ still has his arm strength. He certainly still has that moon ball. But, Rodgers can still throw the ball down the field. We've seen that over the last few weeks, especially for Aaron Rodgers. But unlike Russ, Rodgers can actually read a full field progression read. And he's not so dependent on that first read. So I think even if, the number one receiver goes down here in Pittsburgh and DK Metcalf, which we saw last year with George Pickens with Russell Wilson, I think that Rodgers would be able to keep his head above water as a quarterback, whereas you took away George Pickens, the number one weapon on that Steelers offense last year, and Russell Wilson became maybe the worst starting quarterback in the league down the stretch, all right? And then even when George got back, he was dropping passes. He wasn't the same player. I think that Aaron Rodgers, because he distributes the ball to a bunch of different people, and, it's not necessarily about targeting a specific person with Aaron Rodgers. It's about finding the open receiver. and actually reading coverages. And because of that, I think that Aaron Rodgers is probably not going to fall off a cliff the same way Russell Wilson did. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see how the season plays out. We'll have to see if Rodgers stays healthy. That's going to be a concern as the season goes on. Can his body handle a 17-game schedule without getting injured? That's going to be something that is going to be a very crucial question mark that will be answered as the season goes on. But certainly I feel better about A-Rod than I did about Russell Wilson. Then Cody Greenwood says, I'm from Minnesota, so half cross country, 15 hours. Got 7 in the bag. All right, Cody. Well, we do have quite a bit of content for you guys today, so maybe we'll kill another hour or so of that drive for you here on this live show. Maybe even an hour and a half. We'll see how long these segments go. But really do appreciate you tuning in here, Cody. And now I want to let you guys know we will be going live for Sunday Night Football this weekend. On Sunday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Over an hour of pregame coverage for your Pittsburgh Steelers, followed by live play-by-play and live analysis of the game itself. And then we got extensive postgame coverage. As always, we have the largest Steelers watch parties anywhere on the YouTube platform. We go live for every single Steelers game. So if you guys want to join us and react to the game together and all that great stuff, you guys can click that subscribe button and join us on Sunday. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Now on today's show, coming up here in just a second, I'm going to be getting into the latest Steelers news and rumors from the south side of Pittsburgh. Then we'll get to 2 game-changing adjustments that I think the Steelers can make on the defensive side of the ball that could catapult this group to a top 10 defense and put this Steelers team as a whole in Super Bowl contention down the stretch. Then we'll get into some stock watch here stuff of the quarterback draft class, my favorite guys in the class at this point in time. And, the 6 quarterbacks that I would be considering in the first round right now if I were Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin. And then we've got your questions. Week 8 mailbag will be coming up at the end of the show. So, again, guys, hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat. And now let me just take a drink. Okay, let's get into our first segment of the day. The latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming at you guys right now. Tonight on Steelers Talk, we have the latest Week 8 injury updates here for you guys as the Pittsburgh Steelers prepare to take on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Then Steelers defensive coordinator Teryl Austin took the podium today, and he said, what about the Steelers defense? I'm going to be reacting to that later in the show, and then we'll finish up here with Cam Hayward and Darius Slay, who both discussed the loss versus the Cincinnati Bengals on their respective podcasts this week. So I'm going to be reacting to what they had to say at the end of the show, so you're not going to want to miss that. But earlier today, guys, we did put out a video here on the channel where I break down my list of 6 players on the Steelers that I think should be getting more playing time, and then also 3 players that I think should be getting less playing time moving forward. So make sure you check out that video from earlier. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right of today's show. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button and join us here on Steelers Talk. We now have over 100,000 subscribers. We are the only Steelers news program on planet Earth, at least on YouTube, that has 100,000 subscribers. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we try to provide you guys in-depth, contextualized, very, very in-depth content on the Pittsburgh Steelers. News and rumors content, injury updates, previews for every single game, post-game reactions. We try to give you guys at least 2 videos a day on this channel. So if you guys want daily and free Commanders content that's also entertaining, make sure you click that subscribe button and join the Steelers Talk family. So we'll start here with some injury updates here and a couple of concerning injuries popped up on the injury report this week here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll start with T.J. Watt, the outside linebacker here, who popped up with a hip injury. He did not practice yesterday or today, or he didn't practice yesterday. I believe he was a limited participant today, but that's certainly a little bit concerning, and maybe that means he might be on a little bit of a pitch count, especially because Teryl Austin said today that they might be looking to get Nick Herbig a little bit more playing time. Just something to keep your eye on there, but I don't think that's going to be anything that challenges T.J. Watt's ability to play on Sunday night. And then Zach Frazier, the starting center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, also popped up on the injury report today with a calf injury. He's wearing a sleeve on his leg. Apparently he had his calf tightened up in the game, actually, last Thursday versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and he says that it's sore, but he's probably going to be good to go. Brooke Pryor reported that here earlier today. Says Steelers center Zach Frazier said his calf injury happened on the second drive of the Bengals game. He said it feels quote-unquote sore, but he thinks he'll be okay. But he has not been participating in these drills with his teammates over the first few practices of the week. We'll be monitoring his status as the week goes on, but if I had to guess right now, I think both TJ Watt and Zach Frazier end up giving it a go on Sunday night. But now shifting over our focus to Green Bay, where it sounds like Christian Watson, who hasn't played all season to this point, coming off a very serious injury from last season. Sounds like he may make his season debut this Sunday here, playing against his former quarterback in Aaron Rodgers this weekend. Watson said this when he was asked whether or not he's going to play this week. He said, quote, "That's my plan. My goal and my plan is to play this week." And then head coach Matt LaFleur responded to those comments today by saying this: "That's a great mindset to have. I want all of our guys to have that mindset. But ultimately, that's going to be a medical decision." So we'll see if Christian Watson's going to be able to give it a go. But if Watson's optimism is any indication, I would say right now, I would guess that he probably plays on Sunday. But Matt LaFleur also confirmed today that Dontavian Wicks is unlikely to play this week with a calf injury. So that's another receiver that's down for the Green Bay Packers. They're already going to be down Jaden Reed, their number one guy in this offense when healthy. So, losing Dontavian Wicks, another bigger body, kind of route runner guy, is going to hurt them a little bit. So that means that the likely Green Bay wide receiver rotation, for sure, Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden, their rookie out of Texas, are going to be the number one and number two for them this weekend. Christian Watson, we'll see if he plays, and if he does, I would say he's probably going to be on a pitch count. Then you got Savion Williams and Malik Heath as some backup options. Savion is kind of their manufactured touch guy, and Malik Heath has actually shown some pretty good things this year as well. So I expect to see all five of these guys out there on the field on Sunday, and I'm sure it's going to be a pretty healthy rotation as the night goes on. So let me know, the over or under for the Steelers defense this weekend. Do you think they give up over or under 26.5 points versus the Green Bay Packers this week? They gave up over 30 to Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals on the road last week on Thursday Night Football. Do you think they get them to under 27 in this ball game? Type O for over or U for under. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And while I tell you about today's sponsor, get down there in the comment section and let me know over or under. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is here and in full swing, and you better believe I'll be getting my PrizePicks lineups in all season long. PrizePicks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from PrizePicks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and does not return, PrizePicks will not count it as a loss. So for my lineup here, for Vikings versus Chargers on Thursday Night Football this week, I'm taking the less on Justin Herbert, the more on Justin Jefferson receiving yards, and the more on rushing yards for Kamani Vidal. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So today in the south side of Pittsburgh, D.C. Terrell Austin took the podium today to answer questions about kind of what went wrong versus the Cincinnati Bengals last week. I'm sure, a lot of the reporters were very antsy to ask him some questions because there's been a lot of criticism put on Coach Austin over the last really several weeks as he has struggled to get this very talented and expensive defense to play the way that he wants them to play this season. And what Austin said, and really the reason why, and what he called the stem of the reason for why the defense has been inconsistent is because of the run defense. This is what Austin had to say about why this defense has been so inconsistent this year. I have a simple answer for you. We have to stop the run. It opens up so many things for the other teams when you can't stop the run. Also, on top of that, Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live tweeted this out He was there present during the press conference. He said Austin said that he feels a lot of the struggles have been players who are not being assignment sound and are pushing to make splash play, but the players have to trust each other so the run fits are sound. And I think that is absolutely 100% correct. We've said that on this show, all right? I've said over the last week or so that I think the biggest issue with the Steelers' run defense is that there's too many heroes, is the way that I put it, is that people want to kind of abandon their run fit, try to make a big play in the backfield and try and get a TFL and kind of be the guy that ends the drive, so to speak, for the other offense. But if you're leaving your gap and then you're not getting off blocks elsewhere, it's going to create really, really big holes in the run fit, and it's going to create some really big opportunities for the opposing run game. And we saw that versus Chase Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals rushing offense. And I thought Cam Hayward, defensive tackle here and defensive captain for the Pittsburgh Steelers, put it pretty eloquently on his podcast this week where he described what's going wrong with the Steelers' run defense. He says, I think it comes down to just trusting the defense. Sometimes you feel like you just got to make a play, and sometimes it's defeating your block first and then going on. Not jumping out of our gaps, not trying to anticipate something, just locking in on your assignment. If you start to see too much, you'll see nothing. Just focus in on your job and keying your guy. As a team, you have to just buy into what the group is doing. Everyone's always looking for that knockout TFL. Sometimes a 1 or 2 yard stop is money. And this is exactly, almost verbatim what I have said on this channel. When I've been talking about the run defense and what's going wrong here is that there's just too many heroes. There's too many people that want to make a big play when, if you give up a 1 or 2 yard gain, maybe even a 3 yard gain, that is a very successful rushing defense snap in most scenarios, unless, it's some sort of short yardage situation, right? So, I think we've seen this run defense play very well this year. The first 2 weeks, without Derek Harmon out there, and they were kind of figuring things out, and Peyton Wilson wasn't having a great time of it out there in run defense. It wasn't very good. But then from weeks 3 through 6, all right, outside of that Cincinnati game last week, for 3 straight games, they looked really, really good, and they were one of the higher performing rushing defenses in the entire National Football League. Hell, they were first in EPA per rush allowed. So we've certainly seen that this rushing defense can, have success going up against even good run games. The Cleveland Browns and Quinshon Judkins are beating everybody right now on the ground except for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 6. And in the end here, guys, I think the run defense isn't what concerns me the most, okay? And the fact that Austin says that is the root of the problems with this defense concerns me a little bit, because I actually think the biggest concern, and I think that the most consistent concern that has been there, not just over, last week or, the first 2 weeks of the season, but all season, has been the Steelers secondary. And obviously you didn't have Joey Porter Jr. for a number of weeks there, but even with Joey Porter Jr. on the field for the entire game last week, you get absolutely ripped versus Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals passing attack. And that has been a very consistent theme for the Steelers defense this year, and why this unit currently ranks in the bottom half of the league among most defensive stat categories. So this is what Austin had to say about the cornerbacks today. He did address it, and he said, quote, "We all thought we'd be better at cornerback at this point, but I know these guys are pros and will bounce back." And this kind of echoes what Mike Tomlin said earlier this week about the cornerbacks, saying this: our cornerback certainly hasn't met our vision to this point, but I'm not discouraged. We got good people there, good players, good people, guys that got good relationships with the game, so we're just going to keep working. Now, my question to Tomlin and Austin here are they not discouraged, and do they feel like they'll bounce back because, they think that they're going to execute their kind of man-heavier style system better, or are they going to, switch up some things? Are they going to change their vision for what this defense is going to look like in order for this defense to have more success in the passing game, at least defending the run on this side of the ball? And I'm really hoping it's the latter, because, we've seen now 6 games of this passing defense really struggle, even against Justin Fields and the Jets offense, and they've stunk against everybody else so far this season. All right, so obviously there's something that you are asking your personnel to do that they are not doing very well. In the case that I've made, on this channel is that they're playing too much man coverage. Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay are much better with their eyes on the quarterback, where they're allowed to play instinctually and use their instincts to be able to close throwing windows and get to the football and do all those things that we know that they can do. But if you play man to man, that's a very physical, kind of traits-based kind of success or failure kind of system. And I just don't know if those guys have the gas in the tank to go up against the Jackson Smith and Jigbas of the world and the Justin Jeffersons of the world and the Jamar Chases of the world and the Garrett Wilsons of the world in one-on-one coverage. And I think that we've seen that throughout the season with those guys consistently losing in those one-on-one matchups. Now, also Nick Farabaugh tweeted this out about something that Austin said, specifically about his play calling strategy in last week's game versus Cincinnati. He said, Terrell Austin says the 2 explosive runs by Chase Brown totally changed the way he called the game and shrunk their menu on the back end to deal with the Bengals' run game. Now, my read on that is that Austin pretty much panicked, all right? He abandoned a game plan that was working for the first 2 drives. Remember, the Steelers stopped the Cincinnati Bengals for 2 straight drives to start that football game. And, they were doing pretty good. And then, okay, there's a couple of bad reps in there in run defense, but you completely throw that game plan in the trash and you kind of have a more condensed kind of menu is what he called it, of coverages that you run for the rest of the game. And then you allow Jamar Chase to just kill you on those coverages the rest of the game. I mean, this just strikes me as Terrell Austin got spooked and he got rattled and, he was living in his fears and he decided to play more conservatively and not play as aggressively as they did in the first 2 drives because you give up a couple of explosive runs. It's like, how about we just plug up the run instead of, completely changing our defensive game plan, which makes it a lot easier on Jamar Chase, Joe Flacco, and company to completely just run the ball down your throats and pass the ball down your throats all game long from that point forward. It just doesn't make any sense, man. And for me, that's the definition of playing in your fears. All right, you can't let a couple of bad plays negate the game plan that you spent all week trying to prepare for and was working before those 2 bad plays. All right, for me, I don't think that was a good adjustment by Terrell Austin, and to me that projects kind of an aura of weakness from the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive coaching staff. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you think Terrell Austin needs to do a better job, I certainly think that he does. All right, listen, I'm willing to defend these guys on some of the kind of bullshit points that are being made about this defense on social media. You guys know that I have called out some of that BS stuff that is being thrown out there in terms of the narratives, but I'm also certainly willing to call these guys out when they're not doing the proper things. And I think that, changing up your defensive game plan after 2 explosive runs, I think that certainly bears some criticism there. And I certainly think with the start of this season, this defense needs to play a lot better, and Austin needs to do a lot better as the play caller. Now, to finish up today's show, we'll talk about what Darius Slay had to say on the Richard Sherman podcast, where he said that Tomlin wasn't sugarcoating nothing this week, all right? So if you're somebody that thinks that Tomlin is just okay with the way that they played on Thursday Night Football last week, well, think again, man, because apparently he wasn't holding anything back in the team meetings over the last several days. This is what Slay had to say. Mike T, straightforward, ain't too much positive. Only thing positive to come out of this is a learning experience of what we need to do better. We had a little meeting. One thing about Mike T, man, what I appreciate, he thorough now. He's going to tell you what it is. He ain't going to sugarcoat nothing. So, Mike Tomlin is somebody that doesn't blast players in the media, and that's something that I really appreciate him for. But, those closed-door meetings in the meeting room, I bet he is ripping people apart for some of the bad shit that they were doing on film versus the Cincinnati Bengals and challenging those guys to play better, all right? We've heard a bunch of times about the miscommunication issues, and I'm guessing Mike Tomlin, is fed up with those things just like we are, and he was letting them have it in those team meetings. And by the way, that's exactly the way that he should be addressing this because it's not good enough, and I think we all agree with that, and I think the first person that would tell you that is the head coach of this football team. So that's what I appreciate about Mike Tomlin. He doesn't accept stuff like this, all right? But on the other hand there, you have to switch some things up. You got to find the right pieces to the puzzle to figure out how to play this defense correctly, because clearly your vision for this defense, and especially how you were going to utilize the secondary, isn't working out. So you got to find some solutions. So it's one thing to not accept the result and to, hold people accountable in the meeting room, but it's another thing to kind of adjust your schematics and be able to come out with a better game plan moving forward. And I guess we'll have to see if Tomlin and Austin do that in the weeks to come. And if he can't do that, and we're talking about at the end of the season, this team went 9-8, missed the playoffs because the offense was good, but the defense, with the most expensive defense in the league with a defensive head coach, was the reason why that this team didn't make the playoffs or that they drastically underperformed. I'm sorry, man. That's going to be the last straw for me personally. I'll want to trade Mike Tomlin at the end of the season if that ends up happening, especially because you can get a first-round pick in exchange for Tomlin, all right? So, I'm going to be willing to give him the rest of the season, all right? I think that he's a really good locker room manager and organizational manager, and that's the number one job of an NFL head coach. But as somebody that is in charge of defensive game planning week in and week out, it's also your responsibility to put the right pieces to fit the puzzle, all right? And figure out how to get this defense, especially with how much money we're spending on that side of the ball, figure out how this defense can play better and honestly play up to the standard that the money that they're making has really set. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. What is your confidence level in Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin to figure this thing out before the end of the season and get this team playing like a top 10 unit? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10 for me down there in the comment section. 1 meaning not at all. They're absolutely terrible. This season is doomed. To 10 being these guys are really good. They're going to be able to figure it out. I have all the confidence in the world in these two men. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys so much for stopping by here this evening. I'll have more Steelers coverage for you guys tomorrow early on in the day, so make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, news and rumors out of the way, and next up, very fun segment. It's going to be a little bit one of these in the weeds types of segments here, guys, all right? So I'm going to be getting into some football terminology. We're going to get into some scheme-specific stuff. We're going to get very specific about the ways that I would approach fixing this Steelers defense. And I think there's two pretty big adjustments that the Steelers could make, and they could make them immediately. It's not like these things would be hard to implement, all right? These are two things that I think the Steelers can do right now on defense that could make this unit immediately better and potentially get this team to a point where they're playing top 10 defense. And if you're playing top 10 offense like you are right now and top 10 defense, that's the formula for a Super Bowl contender right there, okay? Then we'll get into quarterback draft rankings, talking about some targets. I got 6 college quarterbacks midway through the college football season that I would be considering taking in the first round. We'll break down those quarterbacks and their profiles coming up here pretty soon. And then, of course, we got our mailbag. So if you haven't already, get your questions in using hashtag Steelers in the chat room. Again, use hashtag Steelers and put your question in after you put that hashtag Steelers in so Ponzi can see it. If you don't put hashtag Steelers in there, we can't see your question and we can't put it on the mailbag. And, of course, if you want to guarantee your question gets on the show, you guys can super chat. I saw we did get a couple more super chats, Ponzi, that we'll hit here before we get into our next segment. Shout out to Bernard Nixon, who says A-Rod was moving like he was 31 out there. What's that, Ponzi? We have a lot? A lot from Bernard. All right, so Bernard has a lot of questions today. That's great. So, yeah, he was moving great, Bernard. And then he says, do you think the Steelers can beat the Packers? Yes, I think they can beat the Packers. Next, I think Calvin Austin III being back is big for the offense. I agree. He's your best man-to-man separator on the team, and you've been missing him in that regard a little bit over the last few weeks. So I think that having his speed, his ability to separate to all 3 levels, to play inside or outside, having that versatility will be huge for the Steelers offense moving forward. And he says, do you think the defense can bounce back this week? I sure hope so, Bernard. It's a good offense that you're playing this week. Really good offensive play caller, a quarterback that's playing well in Jordan Love. You got a really good running back in Josh Jacobs. It's going to be a test, but I'll tell you this. If they can come out and have a fantastic performance against this offense, I think that we can be talking about this Pittsburgh Steelers defense finally starting to figure it out. So I'm really excited to see what this defense comes out and plays like after that terrible performance against the Bengals. Then he says, A-Rod is a Hall of Famer. Russ is not. I would probably agree with that. I mean, some people have said, and I think it's a little bit unfair, but some people have said Russ has played his way out of Hall of Fame contention. I don't think that's quite fair because I don't think he was quite at Hall of Fame level before he started playing poorly. So, by the way, good for Russ for standing up to Sean Payton this week. I mean, I didn't think he had it in him to call someone out on Twitter like that, but good for Russ. He's a good guy, good human being. Maybe a little cheesy, but he's a genuine guy that does a lot of good for children's hospitals, and he donates to charity a lot and all that stuff. So, I have no problem with Russell Wilson as a human being. Then we got Bernard again, says that's why A-Rod can keep it up. 100%, man. He can keep it up. I think that the mental processing side of things, really outpaces Russell Wilson in that regard, and I think that makes his style of play a little bit more sustainable than Russell Wilson's was. Then he says, I got Steelers 27-25 this week. Yeah, man, I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm really excited to see, if Aaron Rodgers and, the Steelers defense can make the proper plays in the fourth quarter to be able to come out on top. So really excited to see what we're going to have on film on Sunday night. Bernard again. I mean, goodness gracious, Bernard. He's spending a fortune here. He says, A-Rod, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing TD, no picks. All right, 1 rushing TD. We'll see if Rodgers still has a little something in the tank. Bernard says, I still think A-Rod is better than Flacco. What? I mean, if anyone's saying Joe Flacco is better than Aaron Rodgers, they're high. So I don't think anyone's saying that. Justin Watson, my man Justin, says this would be a perfect match zone team. Mike Tomlin refuses. Well, they do run some match zone, all right? They do run some, and they used to run it a lot more, Justin. They have it in one of their basic installs in this playbook with Mike Tomlin is 3 rip Liz. And we're going to talk about 3 rip Liz in our next segment. But I agree with you. They're playing way too much just straight man coverage right now, and teams know it's coming, and they're doing a lot of rub concepts, which man match would account for. So I'm right there with you, Justin. I think that, we're going to talk about the ways that I think that you can, play stuff other than the man coverage, the straight man coverage that they're playing right now in our next segment. So I'm not going to give away too much. But, yeah, match zone is certainly one of the things that this team can do more often. All right, man, so let's get into our next segment here. I think you guys are really going to love this. If you're a psycho and you're a sicko and you love, schematics, if you love to get into the specifics, if you love to get into it and talk about football and the how and the why things happen instead of just the what, we're going to be getting into that here in our second segment. 2 game-changing adjustments that the Pittsburgh Steelers can make on defense this week, in my opinion, that can turn this defense into a top 10 unit and get this team into Super Bowl contention. All right, without further ado here, guys, let's get into our next segment. Ponzi, let's get into it. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. On today's show, I've got 2 defensive adjustments that the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, Taylor Lawson, can implement immediately into this defense to make their defense better and, dare I say, get this team to be playing top 10 or top 5 level football and get this team as a whole in the Super Bowl contention. Now, before we get into today's kind of in-depth video, we love to talk about scheme. We love to talk about the how and the why things happen on film here on Steelers Talk instead of just the what, like a lot of Steelers commentators out there, which is why we believe we're the largest Steelers news program anywhere here on YouTube. So if you guys like that contextualized, in-depth, but also entertaining coverage that teaches you about football schematics, all that different stuff, that's what we try to provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already for free Steelers breakdowns. So the first adjustment that I'm going to suggest for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to not play as much straight man coverage as they have played to start this season. Okay, and listen, okay, not just most, every single NFL defense plays more zone coverage than man coverage, okay? I think the number 1 team in the league is Cleveland with a little bit over 40%. The Steelers currently run 31.7% of their defensive snaps in man coverage. That's the 7th most in the National Football League, okay? So that's a pretty high number. But the problem is the Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback room aren't good enough in man to run that much man coverage, okay? They're just not, all right? And I know that the plan coming in was Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, and Jalen Ramsey were supposed to be so good in man coverage that they were just going to be able to put those guys on islands, and there was nothing the opposing offense was going to be able to do about it. Well, I think they maybe overestimated, Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay's ability in man coverage in particular, because, Terrell Austin had Darius when he was in his prime in Detroit, when he was one of the premier man corners in the league. And then, Jalen Ramsey was a premier man corner when he was coming out of college. And I think Mike Tomlin still kind of thinks that he's that guy, even though he's getting older, right? So I don't think that those guys necessarily have the athletic chops to be able to go up against a Jamar Chase or Jackson Smith-Njigba or Justin Jefferson or Garrett Wilson, the guys that they've seen this year and have frankly cooked this Steelers secondary and man coverage any longer. All right, I think they're much more zone kind of type of corners that need to have their eyes on the quarterback. They're very instinctual. I still think they can be good football players, but I think they're being miscast in this Steelers defensive scheme that's trying to run, in my opinion, too much man coverage. And also, Pittsburgh's style of man coverage is too predictable, in my opinion. And whenever you are too predictable, opposing offenses can take advantage of that with scheme, in preparation and in their game plan. And we certainly saw that with as many rub concepts as we saw from the Cincinnati Bengals on the film last Thursday night. And the reason why, they're predictable is because they run one specific coverage when they're playing man almost 80% of the time. And that coverage is cover one free, otherwise known as man free coverage. Okay. And what it is you've got one high safety and he's playing, the deep post in a zone there. But then you got island one-on-one coverage across the board everywhere else, and you're sending 5 different defensive linemen, or you can send a linebacker or a DB. There's a 5-man pressure look, and then everybody else is in man coverage. Okay, and the Steelers run this more than any other coverage in their playbook. All right, and this was the coverage that the Steelers kind of envisioned to be their identity as a defense this year. And as you guys can see on the screen there, some of the weaknesses. All right, does this sound familiar? Pick routes, breaking routes over the middle of the field, crossing routes, the stuff that this team has been absolutely destroyed on all season long. Play action passes. All right, some of these play action deep shots that have worked against the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. There's not a ton of underneath help either. So what does that say? Jamar Chase with all the underneath routes. If you play this coverage too much, people are going to know it's coming and they can tailor their game plan to attack it, especially if you have guys playing this coverage like Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay who can't keep up with the premier corners or the wide receivers in this league, like Jamar Chase and JSN and Justin Jefferson. All right, it's going to get toasted very, very frequently, and that's what we've been seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this year. And if QBs know what's coming, guys, they can get the ball out faster. And we certainly saw that from Joe Flacco. I mean, he had one of the fastest average time to throws in his entire NFL playing career in that football game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he was like, oh, I see they're in man-free coverage pre-snap. It's a static coverage. So he's like, oh, I know exactly what's coming. This is man-free. All right, I'm going to find Jamar Chase, and he's going to cook Darius Slay immediately. All right, like that it was just so easy for Flacco to take the snap, 1, 2, 3, get to the top of his drop, and then throw a quick pass to Jamar Chase. It was just too easy, and there was just nothing that Jamar Chase or that Jalen Ramsey or Darius Slay were capable of doing. Now, the fix for this issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to not play this coverage as often. All right, maybe not at all. I don't think that it benefits the Pittsburgh Steelers to play man-free because they don't have the corners to survive in one-on-one coverage, especially against most teams, and most teams have at least one very good man-to-man separator. And, if you have Darius Slay on that man-to-man separator or Jalen Ramsey, more often than not, they're going to lose in that man-to-man coverage, all right? And also man-free because there's no intermediate zone defender there to take away those quick slants and to take away those intermediate dig routes. It's going to lead to a lot of open space in the middle of the field, and we've seen the Steelers defense get absolutely gashed over the middle of the field all season long because they keep playing this coverage, and I don't think there's really any reason to, given the talents and really the lack of man-to-man talent in the Steelers cornerback room. So I would say you could do 3 different things, okay? And it's probably a combination of the 3 to make up for the nearly 20% of defensive snaps where you're running man-free coverage right now. Number 1, you can play more man-match coverage, okay? And most defenses in the National Football League run a lot of man-match. Mike McDonald runs a lot of it in his system. Robert Saleh runs it a lot in his system. Brian Flores runs a lot of man-match in his system. It is the modern way to defend opposing offenses. Man match was really popularized by Nick Saban. Way back in the day when he was working for Cleveland, he actually created his famous 3 rip Liz that we're going to talk about here in a second to combat the spread passing game of the Pittsburgh Steelers of that era. And, it's certainly a coverage that is everywhere in college and professional football today. And the great thing about man match coverage is that you can play it out of a 2-high safety shell, and when you do that, it's really hard for the quarterback to know what the defense is doing pre-snap because there's so many different kinds of man match coverage that you can call. There's so many different variations for the ways that defenses can attack you in man match that you really have to process the defense post-snap. Like especially if they're in a 2-high safety shell, it's really difficult to decipher if they're playing stubby or if they're playing cut or if they're playing whatever different variation of Saban man match coverage that they're playing on that particular snap. So it makes that quarterback have to mentally process a defense, and it makes them hold on to that ball that extra second, which could open some opportunities up for the Steelers pass rush to get home without the quarterback getting rid of it in 2.5 seconds like Joe Flacco was every single play. Now, I don't expect you guys to really understand the play art here, but this is called 3 rip Liz. This is Nick Saban's baby, okay? And this is really the coverage here where you have that one deep safety. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have run this coverage a lot over the years. They're not running it nearly as much this year, but they run it a lot, all right? And pretty much the rules are those outside corners are man-to-man on those outside receivers unless they go on an in route 5 yards out, okay, or shorter than that. So if they go vertical, the corners are on those guys one-on-one. Okay, and then the number 2 corners, they're also reading the number 2 receivers. If they go vertical, they're carrying them up the seams. Okay, and if any of those receivers cross the field or whatever, they call an undercall and they go into the linebackers where they can pick those guys up, and then the linebackers are essentially banjoing the running back in the backfield where whichever side of the play formation that running back goes out to in the passing concept, the linebacker is going out to take the running back. So it accounts for every single thing there, and what's really good at is eliminating rub concepts, which are really good against straight up man coverage, okay? So you can account for every single person and every single route in a particular offensive play. And you can run a lot of different variations off of this, especially when you put that extra safety out deep, which is what, Mike McDonald does and what, Robert Saleh does and Vic Fangio does. And, there's so many of these top defenses that run this coverage and run variations of this coverage pretty much on every single play in the National Football League. And if you run this type of coverage, what this allows you to do, guys, is it would allow you to utilize Joey Porter Jr.'s talents as a press jam corner, as a Meg defender. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Sabanese, Meg means man everywhere he goes, okay? So that means no matter where that receiver that he's lined up goes, Joey Porter Jr. is following him. And usually you play that press jam coverage, and Joey Porter Jr., that's what he does, all right? He's not a very good zone corner. He's not very good, honestly, playing like true quarters and mod coverage. Like, he's really good at getting in somebody's face and shutting them down with his long arms and his physicality. So the Steelers can certainly, go into that strength of his, and whether you're running stubby, where you're running the triangle coverage to the number 2 and the number 3 on a trips formation, and Joey Porter Jr. can lock down the number 1 receiver on the outside, whether that's, he goes into the slot and he locks up someone in Meg from the slot, whether that's, he's one-on-one in a trips formation to the single receiver side and he's just taking the number 1 receiver on the outside, you can utilize Joey Porter Jr.'s skill set in press jam coverage by making him a Meg defender in these man-match looks. Now, I know I just threw a lot of terminology at you guys. I'm sure, there's certain things that you're confused about, stuff like that. Just know that man-match coverage allows you to use the strengths of Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey as zone players that can have their eyes on the quarterback while also using Joey Porter Jr.'s strength as a press jam corner in these types of coverages. So I think that this is something the Steelers should play more of because I think it accentuates the strengths of all of their cornerbacks and can be tailored to the needs of the strengths and weaknesses of the players in the Steelers secondary. So if you guys want a deeper dive into Sabanese and Saban match concepts in the future, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon, all right? Today we kind of just had the crash course because we got other stuff that we want to talk about on today's show. But if you guys want a dedicated video talking about cut and smash and all these different calls that Saban has and all the different variations of man match coverage, talk about palms, talk about quarters, talk about all the different ways that you can run man match. We can do a full video on that, but you got to like this video to let me know that you want it. Now, before we get to the rest of today's show, guys, let's have a quick word from our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks. And Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating. From legendary burgers to mouth-watering steaks, deli-style franks, and so much more, you'll elevate your next game day get-together with America's original butcher. And now with this exclusive offer, you can get $35 off at omahasteaks.com with promo code STEELERS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. But Omaha Steaks, guys, it has been America's original butcher since 1917. Every single steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, and seafood. Plus, if you want to get some desserts, they also have some delectable desserts for you to choose from on their website as well. And the reason why I love Omaha Steaks, guys, is because I can get their steaks in bulk. And you guys can save a lot of money by buying these steaks in bulk. And every single piece of meat is absolutely the highest quality. And, it's absolutely fantastic stuff. They also have very fast delivery times, all this different stuff. They're just a fantastic butcher to work with. So if you're tired of having to get steaks every single week and you want to, get an assortment of different things, and it doesn't just have to be steaks, guys. You can get burgers for your cookout. You can get hot dogs. You can get chicken. You can get pork. You can get chicken wings for your game day watch party or whatever when you join us on the Steelers Talk watch party. Whatever you love in terms of the meat that you choose from, make game day delicious with the official sponsor of tailgating with our friends at Omaha Steaks today. That's, visit omahasteaks.com and get $35 off with promo code STEELERS at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and promo code STEELERS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. And a big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. All right, so now another way that I think that the Steelers should address this issue with them playing too much straight-up man coverage is that they should play more zone. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in this chat room saying, but Jack, I've been told by Steelers Twitter that they just do spot drop static zone all the time. That's all they do in this defense. Well, that's just, that's a little bit of a BS narrative. If you watch the film, you guys can see that when they do play a zone coverage, a majority of the time they are doing a post-snap rotation, just like the other defenses in the National Football League. If you just sit in static zone coverages all day, guys, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, the defense has been destroyed, and that's true, but the Steelers are actually pretty well known for their creative zone looks where they'll go to non-traditional Tampa or the kind of these creative types of post-snap rotations and pre-snap disguises, especially out of single high safety looks. There's a lot of different things that they do. They love that cover 3 buzz look that is completely taking over the National Football League right now, where you start with 2 high safeties and you bring down a safety into the hook curl. They love playing that form of zone. Frankly, guys, like we talked about, Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey are better suited with their eyes on the quarterback, where they can kind of read, a route concept. They have their eyes on both the receiver and the quarterback, and they can kind of read things out, anticipate, and then be able to go and try and break things up in that way. All right, they're older players that aren't in their athletic primes anymore, and I think that is the benefit of having veteran corners, is that, they're not the most spry athletically, but they're really smart, they're very instinctual, and they're very physical. And, Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey can still play that caliber of ball. Darius Slay won a Super Bowl last year playing in a man-match heavy system with Vic Fangio in Philly. All right, Jalen Ramsey won a Super Bowl in L.A. playing a man-match heavy system with Sean McVay, Raheem Morris, and the Los Angeles Rams. All right, these guys have played this kind of system a lot, and if the Steelers Steelers can do a good job mixing up man match with zone coverages, true zone coverages, and maybe even split the field, play man match to one side, and then play zone to the other side, start confusing these quarterbacks and force them to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, that is something that can absolutely benefit this Pittsburgh Steelers defense and make it way better and way less predictable than it is right now. But I want to make sure I make this point abundantly clear. You do not run a lot of zone from static formations, all right? I'm not saying that the Steelers should run more like zone coverages where they go out in a clear cover 3 pre-snap alignment and then they just play cover 3 every play. I'm not saying that they go out in a clear Tampa 2 look every single play and run Tampa 2. No, you got to do these post-snap rotations, the pre-snap disguises, and as I mentioned, Mike Tomlin and Taylor Lawson actually do those things already, okay? So, I think that playing more of that is going to help out your defense. And then the final thing that you can do to eliminate the issues that man-free is creating for this defense is you just play regular cover 1. When you play true man coverage, just play regular cover 1 with the deep post safety, but then you have an intermediate zone defender to take away, the quick slants and the intermediate digs and all these different things that you see from these teams that are absolutely killing this Steelers defense right now. And, those intermediate zone defenders can go a long way, right? If you can play outside leverage a little bit better in that regard because you're not worried about them going over the middle of the field because, Jalen Ramsey, if he's from the slot and he's playing outside leverage and man coverage versus somebody, he knows that he's going to have Patrick Queen or Deshaun Elliott buzzing down into a robber look to take away those intermediate middle types of routes, all right? So that intermediate middle zone defender can go a very long way to helping out the Steelers in man coverage when they do want to deploy those man coverage looks. And by the way, if you do that, you have to play with 4 rushers instead of 5, and that kind of takes me to my next point. That's the second adjustment that I would make if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, is to not blitz as much. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, the pass rush isn't getting home enough when they do blitz. You're telling me we should blitz less? Isn't that going to make us less effective as a pass rush? Well, kind of stick with me here, guys, all right? So we'll start with how much the Steelers are blitzing right now. And they're top 5 in the NFL right now in blitz rate with a 34.1% blitz rate on the year thus far. That's from Sharp Analytics, okay? And what they're doing with a majority of those blitzes is that they're not like 6 or 7 man blitzes. They're not running a lot of cover 0 or anything like that. What they're doing is those man-free blitzes where you're just rushing 5 and, it's not working because the ball is getting out extremely quickly because the corners can't hold up in man coverage. And the name of the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, guys, is you got to find ways to hold up in coverage long enough for your pass rush to be able to get home. You have to give TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Cam Hayward time to get home. I mean, there's a number of examples in just the Bengals game alone where Cam Hayward immediately beat his guy off the line, and he was on his way to go tackle the quarterback, but Flacco has the ball out in 2 seconds. He has no time to bring him to the ground. All right, so this team in this front 4, super talented group. All right, one of the highest paid groups in the National Football League. All right, you have one of the highest paid edge rushers in the league in TJ Watt. All right, it's just the defense isn't forcing the quarterbacks to hold the ball for longer. The quarterbacks know what's coming. They know that man coverage, specifically man-free coverage, is coming. And essentially you're wasting a defender when you run man-free because you could use that defender out in an intermediate zone. You could put him back out in coverage and try to make that quarterback hold it for a little bit longer. But no, the Pittsburgh Steelers send an extra rusher, and because the cornerbacks can't hold up in man coverage, he gets wide open, easy reads right off of his 3rd step in his progression there and 3-step drops. And, the ball's out quickly and the pass rush has no shot. And I think the evidence for this, guys, is just take a look at the average time to throws of the quarterbacks that the Steelers have gone up against this year. Now, Justin Fields holds the ball forever against everybody, okay? So that's 3.5 seconds. That's a long time on average there, but Justin Fields holds the ball for everybody. But then everybody else, there's not a single quarterback that held the ball on average for more than 2.71 seconds, all right? And that was Sam Darnold in week 2. And then Joe Flacco this past week, on average, got the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds, all right? That's just not enough time for this pass rush to get home, and something needs to change in order for these quarterbacks to hold the ball for a little bit longer and present more opportunities for the Steelers pass rush to get home. And my whole thing here, guys, and one of my big themes of this show, as evidenced by our first adjustment that we suggested, is that you should put more bodies and more body resources into pass coverage, okay? Like the more bodies that are out there in coverage, that's going to close up windows, that's going to provide more opportunities for this secondary to make plays. And, when it comes to a defense in the National Football League, a huge luxury is being able to get to the quarterback with just 4 rushers. The Steelers should have that luxury with how much they're paying this defensive line, all right? Like the reason why, in my opinion, you pay these guys all this money is because you want to have that advantage where you don't have to send so many goddamn rushers to get to the quarterback. I mean, what do bad defenses do? They blitz a lot. Why? Because they don't have a lot of true one-on-one pass rush winners, and they got to find other creative ways to get to the quarterback. But the Steelers, with how expensive this unit is, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, all right? They've got other talented players that aren't on big contracts. Derek Harmon, Nick Herbig, etc. All right, you have to be able to get to the quarterback with just 4 because, frankly, the weakness of this team is in the secondary, and right now you're not putting enough resources on the back end to be able to give your very expensive pass rush enough time to go earn the money that they are earning right now. But at the end of the day, guys, Pittsburgh, I believe, certainly has the talent to make this defense one of the best in the league. All right, I really do believe that. The only question on my mind is, will the Pittsburgh Steelers and the coaching staff, in particular Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, adjust their weekly game plans to go away from this man-free, very, very heavy man coverage style of offense and go to something a little bit more suited to the strengths of their players. Because if they don't, it's going to be Jamar Chase all over again, where, the offense knows exactly what they're doing, and they're going to have a plan to attack that every single week. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to do a better job mixing up their looks, doing things where, the quarterback needs to process the defense post-snap instead of, knowing what they're going to run pre-snap and then just confirm it post-snap. Like, that's just too easy for opposing quarterbacks, guys. So Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, they need to find a way to make this defense better and get this team playing well. And if they don't fix it, frankly, Tomlin should be traded at the end of the year. He is a defensive head coach with a very talented and expensive defensive roster. There is no excuse for this team to be held back by their defense, all right? In years past, the defense was great and was playing well and was winning them football games, but the offense was holding them back, and everyone was just saying, get him a coordinator, get a quarterback for Tomlin, and he's going to win. I was somebody that said that, all right? It seems like you've got a good coordinator in Arthur Smith. Seems like you got the good quarterback now in Aaron Rodgers, but lo and behold, it is this Mike Tomlin's defense here that's not getting the job done. So I'm willing to give Mike a shot here. I think that he's done a lot of good stuff as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he's done a lot of good stuff making adjustments on the defensive side of the ball since he's been here. But it hasn't been so far this year, and he's going to have to figure it out. And if this team underperforms or misses the playoffs or something along those lines, Tomlin has to go. But what I'll say is that if he does get this defense fixed, and I think that Tomlin and Austin are smart enough defensive minds to figure this out. If they get it fixed, and this is a top 10 defense down the stretch, and this is also an offense that's continuing to play at a top 10 level down the stretch as well, this Steelers team can be special. They can beat anybody in the National Football League with the way they can run the football, with the way Rodgers protects the football and throws the ball down the field now. And if you can add a dynamic defense with a great pass rush and, a defensive scheme that has quarterbacks holding the ball for a little bit longer, creating opportunities for TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward to actually get home and earn their money, I think the Steelers team can absolutely go on a run to win a Super Bowl this year. I'm not afraid to say that. It's a very veteran group. They're not going to be afraid of that big moment. You just got to find that winning formula, and you got to put the puzzle pieces together to make this thing a beautiful picture here in Pittsburgh. I guess we'll see if Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin figure it out in the weeks to come. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Pittsburgh get it figured out on defense this year? Will they eventually get there? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. I think that they could. But, we'll see. That's my answer right there. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Now, I'll finish up today's show by addressing the run defense because I know a lot of people will say you got to stop the run in order to stop the pass and all these different things. Even Terrell Austin said this week that this is like the root of all the issues for the Steelers defense, which I think is kind of BS. But when it comes to the run defense, guys, I think it's more about execution than it is about scheme. Today was about the adjustments that I would make to the Steelers scheme to make them better. And honestly, I don't think that there's anything necessarily scheme-wise that they need to do to make this run defense better. This one's more on the players, in my opinion, guys, because the way that I describe it is that this defense has too many heroes on it, all right? Like Chuck Clark jumping out of his run fit to try and get a TFL and then gives up a huge gain to Chase Brown. Patrick Queen not being in the right run fit. Peyton Wilson not being in the right run fit. Deshaun Elliott being out of position more times than I would have liked last week. There's just too many people that are abandoning their run fit responsibilities to try and make a big negative play in a TFL when at the end of the day, man, you just got to do your job. And that has to be the message in the Steelers building this week. And based on everything that I'm hearing from Terrell Austin, from Mike Tomlin, from Cam Hayward, especially Cam on his podcast this week, he was preaching, just do your job, all right? And a veteran leader like that, having that message tells me that Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin are also having that message right now. So I'm hoping that this run defense can get back to playing the way that it was the 3 weeks prior and the 3 games prior to that Thursday Night Football matchup. People forget, because they gave up so many yards to the Bengals, that those 3 games prior, they were one of the best run defenses in the National Football League. They were number 1 in the league in EPA per rush allowed. All right, they were 3rd in the average of yards that they were giving up per rush attempt. All right, they were top 10 in success rate as well. So this is a group, especially since Derek Harmon's been injected into this run defense in week 3, that was playing really well. And obviously they took a step back and they reverted versus the Bengals. Hopefully we can chalk that up to just a Thursday night kind of, fluke game in that regard, and they were just playing undisciplined. I'm hoping moving forward that's not the case, and with as much focus that apparently Mike Tomlin and Cam Hayward are bringing to the table here this week, I have a good feeling that this run defense is going to bounce back in a major way in the weeks to come. And while we're at it here, we're already here long enough. It's already a beast of a video. Let's make 2 personnel changes that I would make if I were the Steelers coaching staff. The first one is to make Nick Herbig a full-time starter. And, that's not to bench TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. I want a 3-way rotation between these 3 gentlemen. And the reason why I want that is because they're all worthy of it, first of all. And then second of all, keep these guys fresh as the season goes on. Reduce the chances of injury as the season goes on. And I understand you're paying TJ and Alex a lot more money than Herbig is right now, but the whole name of the game is for these guys to be fresh come playoff time. And I think that as long as all 3 of these guys are healthy, which who knows, one of these guys might get hurt in the weeks to come, and you don't have this luxury anymore, you got to save the bullets, man. You got to save the bullets while you can. And I think the best way to do that is try and get a true rotation between these 3, give them pretty equal snaps as the game goes on. And I think that's probably the best way to approach this year, to try and keep these guys fresh as the season progresses. Then the final change that I would make here to the personnel is I would bench Chuck Clark and I'd play Juan Thornhill. All right, especially if you want to play like these, like cover 3 Rip Liz. If you want to play that kind of Saban concept, you need a middle of the field safety that's willing to be aggressive and jump some of these routes and do all these things. And Juan Thornhill has by far been the better deep safety this year compared to Chuck Clark, who has lost his legs. Thornhill can still run. He's very aggressive. He's a hard hitter. I think he's had a better season than Clark. And then also try and implement Jabril Peppers a little bit more into this defense as well. He's a good player, good tackler, good run defender. And there's been 2 out of 4 games at this point where he hasn't gotten a single defensive snap. So he's got to play more as well. But I would start Juan Thornhill at free safety over Chuck Clark. All right, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. But I know it was a little bit of a longer one. We went really in-depth, all that stuff. But if you made it to the end of today's show, that makes you a real one. We want to show you some love down there in the comment section if you made it to the end of today's show. So make sure you guys type those real ones in all caps down there in the comment section, and that'll do it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. We will have another video for you guys coming up here soon. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, second segment in the books. We still got 2 more to go here, Mr. Ponzi. We're going to get into those here coming up unless we have some super chats. We do? All right, so we'll get into our QB targets here momentarily. But if you guys have a question, we have one more segment, and then we'll get into our mailbag here. Make sure you guys use hashtag Steelers in the chat to get your questions on the mailbag, or you guys can super chat to get on the show guaranteed. And I think at this point, guys, you got to super chat to get on the mailbag. Shannon Cassidy, my man, says, am I the only one who thinks Cam looks unmotivated? I mean, I don't think he looks unmotivated at all. I don't. I think actually he looked out of all the defensive linemen last week versus Cincinnati, he looked the most motivated to me. He made some awesome plays, and like I mentioned in that video, Shannon, he had some very quick wins, and he was on his way to tackle the quarterback, and if the coverage would have just held up for a half second more, he would have had a sack multiple times. He would have had multiple sacks last Thursday, but in like multiple instances there where he's winning quickly, Flacco gets the ball out extremely fast, and like you just got to be able to hold up in coverage for longer. period. Then we got George Hayes Jr., $20 to 618 Steelers. Relax, they will be okay. You all will see. I said it. All right, I hope you're right, George. I hope you're right. They got to make some adjustments, though. So we'll see if they end up making them. $5 from Interstellar Reaper says, do you agree that the Steelers should try and acquire or trade for as many draft picks as possible for 2026 in Pittsburgh? No, because this would mean selling at the deadline, right? And I'm not willing to sell. Like, I want to go try and win a Super Bowl this year, and Aaron Rodgers' lone season maybe here in Pittsburgh. Cam Hayward's got 2 years left in his career. I want him to retire a champion, all right? I'm not giving up on this season. I think if you're giving up on this season, you're giving up on a really talented roster that can still turn things around. People forget that the Super Bowl champions last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, had huge issues on the offensive side of the ball. And then they adjusted. And once they made those adjustments, they became a dominant force in the National Football League. And I think the Steelers are a couple of defensive tweaks away from doing something pretty similar. All right, now, will they make those adjustments? We'll see. I can't say my confidence level is super high right now, but it's possible. And if they make those switches that I just suggested in our last video, I think they could be a top 10 defense immediately and down the stretch. And if the offense keeps it up, which I think they will, that makes the Steelers one of the most well-rounded, best teams in the National Football League with a lot of veteran talent that won't be afraid of the big stage. Multiple Super Bowl champions on this roster that have been there and done it. So if you can just get this defense playing top 10 ball, and I think they can, there's no reason to sell players off and for draft picks. You already have like 12 draft picks next year, man. Like, how many do you need? You know what I'm saying, Buzz? Like, how many draft picks do we need here in Pittsburgh? Or you can make an argument there's already too many. No, you can make an argument.
I guess some fans just want,
just
the Steelers to draft
as many picks as possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, full on Madden mode.
We're sitting at 4-2, and at the top of our division, we're talking about selling players off for draft picks.
No,
it's not going to happen.
And arguably, one of the weaker divisions and weaker times you have a chance to win the AFC North. They, want to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know.
No.
I would be buyers, if anything.
Yeah, I think the Steelers, if anything, should be buyers. Maybe they just stand pat.
I think that's perfectly fine.
Like, if you want to keep your draft picks, and that's like the focus for next year, just stand pat. Like, this offense is playing well. I think you got enough talent on defense to be able to turn it around as is. It's more of a schematic and a game planning issue than a talent issue on defense, in my opinion. At least in terms of the pass coverage. The run defense is the players, but in the execution.
How many draft picks do they have?
I think they have like 12. Because they got comp picks too.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 12 draft picks.
And then,
so like that's already a lot, man. And if you're trying to win now, I don't think you necessarily need to trade pieces off to get more.
7 of those 12, more than 2/3 are, or less than 2/3, I guess, barely, but are in the top 4 rounds.
Yeah, you got a lot of picks in the early rounds. So, yeah, I don't think the Steelers need to sell at all Interstellar. I think that they're trying to win, and if anything, they're going to trade one of those picks to go get a player that can help them win this year. All right, so let's get into our next segment here. Speaking of the draft, let's talk about round 1 quarterbacks and guys that the Steelers could potentially look to draft. Now, maybe they end up going with Will Howard. Maybe they end up doing that. Or, we'll see. Especially if Rodgers comes back, maybe he goes to the front office and says, hey, go get me a weapon, or hey, go get me some help at corner, or whatever. And like, Will Howard is a good enough player where I can mentor him for another year. Maybe Rodgers advocates for Will Howard, and that ends up being the case. We'll have to see what ends up happening in the weeks to come, but you at least have to acknowledge the possibility that the Steelers could take a quarterback in the first round. And now we're midway through the college football season, or slightly past midway, actually. And I think I have a pretty good feel of this quarterback class at this point. And I feel like, there's 6 quarterbacks that I would be considering right now if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's talk about them right now. There are currently 6 draft-eligible college quarterbacks that if I'm Omar Khan, the Pittsburgh Steelers GM, I am considering taking in round 1 of the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, to be clear, I'm not sure if all 6 of these guys are going to be coming out next year. Most of them are eligible to return to school in 2026, so we'll see exactly how many of these guys end up coming out in the draft. But I wanted to talk about all these guys that could go round one here today. I've got 3 guys that I would definitely take in round one if I'm the Steelers, 3 guys that I would consider taking in round one if I'm the Steelers, and then a couple of guys that I don't consider round one guys right now that could potentially get in the conversation as the college football season continues to roll on. Before we get into some college football talk today here on Steelers Talk, make sure you guys go ahead and get down there in the comment section and get us started. Do you think Pittsburgh should go quarterback in round one for next year? Give me a yes if you think they should go out and get their franchise quarterback of the future, or type no if you think that quarterback in Will Howard is already here in the Steel City. All right, now let's get into my 3 tiers that we're going to be talking about today. Number 1, a definite round 1 quarterbacks, the guys that I would definitely take with a first-round pick. Tier 2 guys, a little more raw, kind of potential round 1 guys that might need some time to sit on the bench. And then tier 3, guys that I don't consider round 1 dudes right now, but could potentially get in. So we'll start with tier 1. And like I said, guys, these are the guys that I could certainly spend a first-round pick on, and I would even be open to starting right away for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in this scenario, like for example, you have Aaron Rodgers retire at the end of the year, and you don't want to bring in a veteran to start over a rookie right away. You want somebody that can come in and be relatively ready to play in the National Football League from the jump. And we'll start with who I believe is the most pro-ready quarterback in college football right now. He's already operating a pro-style offense at Alabama under Ryan Grubb, and that is Ty Simpson, the redshirt junior out of Bama. And people forget, man, Ty Simpson was a 5-star athlete as a dual-threat quarterback, so he can move. He's got some nice play creation outside the pocket as well, but what makes him special, man, is his ability to read defenses and target the middle of the field specifically and be so precise targeting the middle of the field. All right, to only have 1 interception on the season, throwing the ball over the middle of the field as much as he does, that points to his accuracy, that points to his precision, that points to his mental processing, and his 1 interception wasn't even over the middle of the field. It was on an out-breaking route. So this is the most proficient over-the-middle quarterback in the national football or in college football right now. He's completing 70% of his passes, and by the way, these are not like dinking and dunking type of style of offense. This is throw the ball down the field, intermediate digs, deep digs, all these types of big boy NFL caliber throws, and he's completing 70% of his passes, ladies and gentlemen. He's got 18 touchdowns, just 1 interception. He is having the best season of any college quarterback this season, in my opinion. He should be the front runner to be the Heisman Trophy winner. And I think that if you're looking for somebody that can operate a pro-style offense right away, like the Steelers might be wanting next year if Aaron Rodgers retires, Ty Simpson is the guy out of all these quarterbacks we're going to talk about today that I would trust to start an NFL game right now. But then we get to Dante Moore, the redshirt sophomore out of Oregon. Super talented arm, quick release, calm demeanor. He just looks, and he just aesthetically on the TV screen, man, he just looks like a franchise quarterback, all right? And I love that calm demeanor. He really stayed calm in the whiteout game against Penn State, and that team faced a lot of adversity late in that game. Penn State rallied late, and that raucous environment in overtime, he made a number of big-time plays out of structure, and he really carried that Oregon offense at times. I didn't think their offensive game plan was all that great, and he's shown flashes of some really good progression-style stuff in this Oregon offense this year. He's got very calm feet. He's got terrific arm talent with a really quick and fluid release that you want to see from your future franchise guy. Is he as pro-ready as, say, a guy like Ty Simpson? I would say probably not at this point, but, he's shown a lot more than a lot of college quarterbacks coming out already. And if he wants to come out, and according to my sources at the Oregon program, like they're setting Dante Moore up to leave this year because they have a backup quarterback in Oregon right now that they want to start next season. It's looking to me like Dante Moore could be a really high draft pick. I mean, even Mel Kiper Jr. has him as his number 1 prospect in the class this year for a reason. But then Fernando Mendoza certainly deserves a lot of love as well. The redshirt junior out of Indiana has been slinging it this year. He does such a good job layering the football over the middle of the field, all three levels of the middle of the field as well. He has made some big-time throws and some big boy throws that make you go, wow, this year. He's got great size. He's got a cannon. He can throw the ball to the field side. He can do a lot of really fun stuff with his arm. And, he reminds me a lot of Jared Goff coming out of Cal. Just the physical skill set where, he's not going to do too much out of structure playmaking. His throwing motion is a little bit stiff. It's not as elastic where you're going to see him throw sidearm and all these different stuff that we see, a lot of the leagues superstar level guys do. But Jared Goff, man, is a hell of a quarterback. He's a borderline top 10 guy in this league. He can be very productive with the right supporting cast, as he's proven over the last several years in Detroit. And the Steelers have a pretty darn good supporting cast. So you can put Mendoza in here. I think he could learn this Shanahan style or old school Shanahan style offense that Arthur Smith wants to run here in Pittsburgh pretty quickly. I think he's a smart dude, and I think that he's a pretty quality quarterback prospect that I would be willing to spend a draft pick on if I'm the Steelers. Now, my guess is all three of these quarterbacks are going to come out this year. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why later in today's show. And, even though all three of these guys can go back to school, I think, if you have an opportunity to go round one and specifically in the top 10 of the draft, you don't waste that opportunity. And I think all three of these guys right now are worthy of top 10 picks at this point in time. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, the Steelers are not going to be drafting in the top 10. So why are we even talking about these guys? Well, that's certainly true, and I do expect the Steelers to, have a good season this year, be at least drafting in the 20s. Hopefully we're talking about them drafting in the 30s, but I won't get ahead of myself, all right? But if that's the case, the good news is, you can definitely trade, and you can definitely trade up, okay? You can trade up just like the Kansas City Chiefs did for Patrick Mahomes all those years back, where, remember, the Chiefs were sitting at 27th, all right? They were a very good football team with an established veteran quarterback in Alex Smith, and they traded 17 spots all the way up to the 10th overall pick to take, the greatest quarterback in their franchise's history, and according to some people, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game of football, all right? So it's certainly a possibility for the Steelers, especially with all the draft picks that they have stockpiled, to get a trade package to move up for one of these guys. If they love Ty Simpson, or if they love Dante Moore, if they love Fernando Mendoza, and there's a team in the top 10, or maybe, before, the first 12 picks, maybe if one of these guys escapes the top 10, that's willing to trade down, I would expect the Steelers to be one of the most aggressive teams to go get their guy at the top of this class. So who's QB1 right now in the 2026 QB class? Give me a TS for Ty Simpson, a DM for Dante Moore, type FM for Fernando Mendoza. Or if there's somebody else that you think is the number one quarterback in this class, let me know who that is down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks. And while I tell you about Omaha Steaks today, let me know who QB1 in this class is right now. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks, which is the official sponsor of tailgating this football season. From legendary burgers to mouth-watering steaks, deli-style franks, and so much more, you'll elevate your next game day get-together with America's original butcher. And now with our exclusive code, you guys can get $35 off at omahasteaks.com with promo code STEELERS at checkout. Terms apply, and see site for details, but Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. All right, every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, and seafood. Plus, you get delectable desserts if you have a little bit of a sweet tooth like Cassie and I have. Now, we love to get Omaha Steaks boxes because we like to try different things. We like to try, of course, the steaks that we love to have at least twice a week at our home, but also chicken, pork. The chicken wings are really good. The burgers are excellent for your cookout, or, like I said, chicken wings for, if you're sitting down watching the Steelers play, right? So make game day delicious with the official sponsor of tailgating this football season with our friends at omahasteaks.com. Visit omahasteaks.com and get $35 off at promo code STEELERS at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and promo code STEELERS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. And a big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now let's get into my second tier of quarterback prospects here, which is the raw round one developmental type guys. Some guys that are, have a really big surplus of intriguing physical talent and star potential. And let's face it, guys, in the AFC with Drake May and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, you need to have a really talented quarterback if you're going to, be consistently competing for Super Bowls in this conference. But maybe they're not the most developed as passers yet and could use a year learning behind a veteran quarterback. And this is really only tenable for me, guys. I'm only considering these guys if, say, Aaron Rodgers comes back for another year and he's your starting quarterback. These guys I'm not really comfortable at all starting in year one. That is if they come out in the draft this year. And I would really want, an established veteran quarterback, whoever that is, to be in front of them and for that starter to play the entire season so that this quarterback can sit, learn, and not have any pressure to play in their rookie season. We'll start with Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. There was a lot of hope that Sellers was going to really take that big leap forward and be a Heisman Trophy candidate and really, take college football by storm and be the number one overall pick. And listen, man, a guy of Sellers is just pure physical talent, could very easily still go in the top 10, if not the top 5, just based on the potential alone, all right? The arm talent, the pocket presence, some of the playmaking instincts out of structure, and, of course, the rushing ability, the contact balance. I mean, he just has a skill set and a tool set that you just can't teach. Now, the accuracy, the mental processing speed, all that different stuff, it needs a lot of work, all right? And that's exactly why I would consider taking him with a first-round pick, but I would want to sit him for at least a year. And if you give Lenora Sellers a year to sit, learn, and not have any pressure to play while Aaron Rodgers tries to, take this team to a championship and presumably his final season and Cam Hayward's final season, by the way, then, Lenora Sellers, after a year learning from one of the all-time smartest quarterbacks in the league, can then take the reins as this team's franchise quarterback. And he has the kind of talent where if he hits, he can be, the Josh Allen, the Lamar Jackson, the Joe Burrow, the Patrick Mahomes of this organization, all right? So, we'll see where it ends up going, whether or not he even comes out in the draft. He could certainly come back to school for one more season if he wishes, and maybe that's the best plan for him, but he's draft eligible, and if he comes out, I would be interested in him if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then let's talk about another redshirt junior here, and John Mateer from Oklahoma. Now, Mateer also has a long ways to go in, his mental processing speed and specifically his accuracy. He has a lot of overthrows, and especially when you're throwing the ball over the middle of the field, if you're overthrowing those kinds of passes, that's going to lead to a lot of interceptions, especially in the National Football League. So Mateer has a really, interesting sidearm type release. Reminds me a lot of Justin Herbert, the way that he throws the ball with that kind of sidearm release. But he's also really good running the football as well. He has really great flashes of anticipation on his film, which leads me to believe that, he can process at a high level, or at least he has the potential to do it more consistently. But he needs to find that consistency, right? So bringing in a guy with this much talent to learn, once again, a year under Aaron Rodgers' wing is something I would definitely be interested in if he comes out. But again, he could come back to school. And then Sam Leavitt, another redshirt junior here, this time from Arizona State. Leavitt is an absolute dog. He has that competitive fire with him. I love watching him play because every time he makes a big play or one of his teammates makes a big play, he is screaming. He's on the sideline pumping up his guys. And, I would love to watch Sam Leavitt be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It's not just the way he plays the game, but how he plays the game in terms of his physical talent. Like, he is a phenomenal out-of-structure playmaker. He's got great playmaking instincts. His arm talent is unreal. He can make these crazy off-platform throws with ease. And then also, he's a terrific runner of the football, guys, all right? Like, don't get it twisted now. He reminds me a little bit. I don't think he's quite as dynamic, but he reminds me in the style of runner that he is kind of a slender, taller quarterback. He reminds me a little bit of Jaden Daniels in that regard. I don't know if that's the Arizona State thing, but there's a certain thing with Jaden's game where he's got this little slippery effect where he can stay balanced but avoid rushers at the same time. Sam Leavitt has that same exact trait, and if he can just corral the accuracy, corral the mental processing stuff, spends a year learning under Aaron Rodgers, I think Sam Leavitt has the talent to be a really, really fun quarterback in this league and somebody that can win a lot of football games, and he's got the competitive spirit that Mike Tomlin, if he's still head coach here, absolutely loves. And the Steelers have already watched a number of Leavitt's games this year, so they clearly like him. But every quarterback that I just talked about in Tier 2, Sellers, Mateer, and then, of course, Leavitt, these guys, can benefit from a year under Aaron Rodgers' mentorship. Just like Patrick Mahomes, who was extremely raw coming out of Texas Tech, really developed and really benefited from a year underneath, Alex Smith. And then also, Jordan Love benefited greatly from learning from Rodgers for multiple years in Green Bay. We've already seen Rodgers develop and help, along these kind of younger quarterbacks. And if you can get a big-time physical talent in there to learn from him for a year, and then he takes the reins over in 2027, honestly, that might be the ideal setup for the Pittsburgh Steelers to find their next franchise quarterback, and this time not have it be for just a 1 or 2 year stretch. However, the Tier 2 guys, like I said, are more likely to go back to school, all right? Because, they could use a little bit more development, and maybe they don't want to sit for an entire year behind Aaron Rodgers. They probably want to play. These guys are competitive dudes. They want to play football while also developing, so they might choose to go back to school, all right? But there is a big risk in doing that, in my opinion. And we'll talk about that later in the show here. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you enjoy our in-depth coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers every single day on this channel. Today we're focusing on college football, not Steelers football. But if you enjoy our coverage on this show, keeping you guys updated on the very latest surrounding the black and gold, we have weekly live shows. We're going to be going live on Sunday for Sunday Night Football, Steelers versus Packers. We have over 100,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk. We are the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere on the YouTube platform, and that's all thanks to you guys. So if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and join our family today. Now, my third tier on today's video is non-round one guys yet. And what I mean by that is these are guys that could still convince me that they could be first-round guys if they really play well down the stretch. But, they haven't seen enough from them this year, at least not yet, for me to put them in that conversation. The two guys I want to talk about here are Garrett Nussmeier, the redshirt senior out of LSU. All right, so he's an older guy. And then Jaden Mayava, the redshirt junior from USC. Okay, and Nussmeier is somebody that came in very highly touted. He was somebody that was in consideration to be the first overall pick even. He uses the Cognalize VR goggles that LSU uses to get their quarterbacks to see the game better, and he had a really good season last year. He threw a little bit too many interceptions last year, but he could mentally process a defense and get the ball to his guys really well. This year it hasn't been as much. The accuracy has taken a dip, in my opinion, and then also the interceptions have been here to stay. He's a really aggressive passer, but honestly, I'm not sure if Mike Tomlin would love Nussmeier's kind of reckless style of play. Usually likes quarterbacks that protect the football. And then Mayava, with Lincoln Riley guys, a lot of them have worked out in the National Football League, but he doesn't bring a whole lot out of structure. I don't know if he has special arm talent. I think he mentally processes the defense pretty well, but then again, it's a very air raidy college-style offense there at USC. I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to fully transition to the NFL game. Obviously, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on both these guys as the season goes on, and I'm intrigued by both of them. But right now, I do not consider them round one talents, at least with my evaluation at this point. Now, of the 8 quarterbacks that we talked about on my list today, only one, and that's Garrett Nussmeier, has to come out this year. And if all of these guys go back to school and we're left with Nussmeier and Carson Beck and Cade Klubnik, some guys we haven't even talked about on today's show, it's going to be a really rough class. All right, Will Howard it is in that scenario, okay? But, I think after the Drew Aller experience this year, where Aller could have been a first-round pick if he would have came out last year with his status. It wasn't a great quarterback class. Aller has a lot of arm talent. He had a pretty darn good end to his season last year at Penn State. He would have been a first-round pick, in my opinion, if he would have came out. He goes back to school because he could have. He wanted to try and give Penn State a national championship, and he doesn't play well. He's 1 year older now, and now he's injured. And he's got a very serious injury, and that's going to affect his draft stock. So now he goes from somebody that's going to be a first-round pick, franchise quarterback, get all the opportunities in the world to prove yourself, to somebody that's probably going to be a day 3 draft pick, if I'm being completely honest. He's got some of that arm talent. Somebody's going to take a shot on him, but the mental processing stuff hasn't been good. The accuracy hasn't been good. The decision-making hasn't been good for Aller. And frankly, he's played his worst ball in some of the biggest moments of his college career, and that's not good. So, I think that these redshirt juniors need to be careful with going back for another year. And there's a lot of redshirt juniors on the list today, all right? So, if you want to go back to school for one more year, you feel like you can really develop, okay, but I would say proceed with caution. If you're projected to be a first-round pick, and especially like a top 15 pick, you got to take advantage of that opportunity, in my opinion. And because of that, I think some of these guys are smarter to make the same mistake Drew Aller made this year. I think we end up getting 4 to 6 first-round quarterbacks this season. I don't know what combination of guys are coming out versus staying. We'll see what ends up happening over the next several months. But I think at the end of the day, somewhere between 4 to 6 college quarterbacks will be first-round picks in the NFL draft in Pittsburgh next spring. So predict it for me down there in the comment section to finish up today's show. How many quarterbacks go in the first round of the 2026 NFL draft? I think it's somewhere between 4 to 6. I'm not exactly sure the number in terms of my answer there, but I think it's somewhere between 4 and 6. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors and Draft News and Rumors. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, so we got our mailbag coming up here, Ponzi. And do we have enough questions? I'm pretty sure we do. So let's just not waste anybody's time here. Let's get into it. If you still have a question, it's not too late. You can still super chat. You can still put hashtag Steelers in the chat. But we have quite a few super chat questions. So I would say if you want to get on the show, you probably have to super chat. We got Thursday Night Football coming up here soon, so let's get into it right now. Our mailbag here on Steelers Talking Week 8 is coming at you right now. Welcome into the Steelers Talk Mailbag here in Week 8. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today I'm answering your questions on the black and gold before this team takes on the Green Bay Packers in Week 8 on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a really fun game to watch with you guys. We're going to be going live for our live watch party starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for those of you interested. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button to join the most interactive Steelers community here on YouTube for Steelers fans. All right, we have over 100,000 subscribers, so we have a very large family here on Steelers Talk. We also have community polls every single day on the channel as well. We have multiple videos where you guys can get involved in the comment section, and then we go live every Tuesday and Thursday. And on the Thursday live shows, we answer your questions on these mailbags. So if you guys want to have a voice in Steelers Nation, if you guys want to have a voice on our channel and our community, you guys can click that subscribe button. And let's get into the questions. First one from Bernard says, do you think the defense can bounce back this week? I do. I think they can. The question is, will they? And will, specifically in my mind, will this Steelers coaching staff figure out some of the schematics differences that they need to make in this kind of scheme where it's a lot of man coverage, it's a lot of straight-up man coverage, and Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay are losing a lot when they're playing those types of coverages. So I think they got to play more man-match stuff. I think they got to play more zone. I think they got to play more traditional man coverage, not with 5 rushers. I think that opens up the middle of the field and provides a very big weakness for this Steelers defense, and that's like the number one coverage that they run is a cover 1 blitz with no intermediate zone defender. So they need to stop doing that, in my opinion, and Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin need to take the hint that is very evident on the film where that's just not working. So they got to switch some things up, but if they can make the proper adjustments, I still do believe, Bernard, that this defense has the talent to be a top 10 unit down the stretch, and if you combine a top 10 offense with a top 10 defense, when it matters in January, this is a Steelers team that is very dangerous and can beat anybody on any given Sunday and could even win their 7th Lombardi trophy this year, but they got to turn the defense around. Then we got one from Justin Watson, my man, says this would be a perfect match zone team. Mike Tomlin refuses. At least to this point, they haven't played a ton of match zone, Justin. They've played a lot of straight-up man coverage, which has left them vulnerable to rub concepts. And we certainly saw that against Cincinnati. And also with the specific type of man that they play, which is called man-free, that same coverage I was talking about without the intermediate zone defender, quarterbacks can pretty much just locate their favorite receiver and more than likely he's going to be wide open against the corner that's covering him. So it just allows quarterbacks to get the ball off too quickly. It prevents this very expensive, very good defensive line and pass rush to get home and earn their money and earn their keep on this defense. So they got to find ways to make these quarterbacks hold on to the ball a little bit longer. And as you mentioned, those match zone teams around the league, like Mike McDonald, Robert Saleh, Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, all these teams and all these philosophies all go back to Saban with the match zone stuff that he ran at Alabama. I think that the Steelers, who have run a lot of match zone in years past, they have been, in some years, very quarters and palms heavy. But this year hasn't been so much. I think they need to get back to that, and I think they got to play more zone coverages where they're rotating post-snap and then reading the eyes of the quarterback. And then when they do play man coverage, only rush with 4, all right? You don't have to rush with 5 and leave the middle of the field wide open when you play man. So those would be my suggestions, Justin. Appreciate the $2 super chat. What say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Will this defense bounce back against the Packers this Sunday night? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. Tell you this, though, man, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, if this defense can corral this group to, around 20 points, I would be very happy with that. This will be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a few seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by simply giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. $5 from Shannon Cassidy says, am I the only one who thinks Cam looks unmotivated? For me, I would disagree with that, Shannon, and the reason for that is because, first of all, he is incentivized to get production because he can make more money by being more productive. So, I don't think that he's unmotivated whatsoever. And even in that game against the Bengals, I thought he had some awesome, really quick wins one-on-one versus his guy. And unfortunately, Joe Flacco was just getting rid of the football within like 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, and Cam didn't have time to get to him, and that's unfortunate. If the defense and the secondary would have held up an extra half second longer, it would have been multiple sacks on the evening for Cam Hayward. We would be talking about him right now like he's playing awesome, but frankly, the secondary hasn't been able to provide the opportunities for this pass rush as of yet. Hopefully they can in the weeks to come. Interstellar Reaper here with a 5 says, do you agree that the Steelers should try and acquire or trade for as many draft picks as possible for 2026 in Pittsburgh? I don't. I think this team is still capable of being a Super Bowl contender. But obviously we talked about some of the things they need to figure out on the defensive side of the ball, but they have the talent, in my opinion. They really do. Like, it's not something where like this team is just not talented enough to, get there. It's more of they just got to put the right puzzle pieces together to create that beautiful picture, right? And right now those pieces are out of alignment, so it's a pretty ugly picture. So you got to, just put these things in alignment to kind of put this puzzle together. And, you already have 12 draft picks. So, like, do you need more than 12 draft picks? 7 of them in the first, 3-4 rounds? Like, it's got a lot of draft picks, man. And you got a lot of draft capital that you've accrued over the year. And if you don't want to give up any of that, like, you can stand pat and not make a trade by the deadline. You could certainly go that direction. I know this team has been pretty precious with their draft picks, but in terms of trading players away and selling at the deadline, despite being 4-2, first in the division, all this stuff, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally, Interstellar. And I think, if anything, the Steelers are going to be buying at the deadline. Now, before we get into the rest of the questions today, let's have a word from our sponsor at Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating this football season. From legendary burgers to mouth-watering steaks, deli-style franks, and so much more, you'll elevate your next game day get-together with America's original butcher. And now with our exclusive code, Steelers, you can get $35 off at omahasteaks.com. Terms apply. See site for details. But guys, Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, and seafood, plus delectable desserts. Make game day delicious with our friends at Omaha Steaks today, the official sponsor of tailgating this football season. Visit omahasteaks.com and get $35 off with promo code STEELERS at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and promo code STEELERS at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. And a big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Next question coming in from my man Dominic Schrader, one of the OGs. Says, Jack, did you get your 100K steak dinner? I did. I forgot to get a picture, but Steelers Smitty is a man of his word. He's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine. We had a great evening. We went to Dakota's Steakhouse, my favorite steakhouse in the world, here in Dallas, Texas. And it's a really cool spot where you take an elevator down to like this little kind of speakeasy type place. They've got a waterfall, they've got live piano music, and they've got the best food you've ever had in your life, ladies and gentlemen, man. You got steak, all right? You've got the best mac and cheese I've ever had in my life. Amazing desserts, and it was all on Steelers Smitty. So thank you for asking this question, Dominic. Steelers Smitty, I hope you're watching. Thanks for the steak, buddy. All right, now before we get into the final questions on this week's mailbag, click that thumbs up icon if you are a real one. Really do appreciate all the support you give to me and Ponzi and our entire team here at Steelers Talk. So make sure you click that subscribe button and click that thumbs up icon to let other new eyes see our channel and click that subscribe button as well. My man, Czar Craig, what's up, Craig? Says, I know it's early, but how big of a contract do you think Calvin Austin III will command this offseason? Well, we'll see what he does the rest of the season, right, Craig? Like, it's really going to depend on what the production looks like this year. If this offense targets him in the way that I think that he could be targeted, we could be looking somewhere like $15 million per season, maybe. I think could be a good price tag for him. He's undersized, but he's inside-outside versatile, okay? He can also run really good routes. He's also really good after the catch, and he's also a great deep threat with his speed, all right? And, I think the reason why, Calvin maybe isn't known as a yak threat is because, frankly, this offense hasn't used him as a yak threat all that much. It's been, he hasn't really gotten a lot of slants and all these different things that get him the ball out in space, but, like, the potential certainly there with Calvin to be like one of the premier yak threats in the league because we see what he does with the ball in his hands in space as a punt returner. It's special. He's got the great speed. He's tiny, so he's tough to tackle. I think Calvin Austin's one of the more underrated receivers in the entire National Football League. Been saying that for a while now, and this team really likes him. So that's where I'm at. Ali the Reaper says, do you think we get Calvin Ridley or go for a cornerback by the trade deadline? I kind of doubt they get a corner because they are already paying Slay so much. And, I think if they're going to bench Slay, they like Brandon Echols. And Brandon Echols has played good enough where if you're benching somebody, I think you'd rather have Brandon Echols play than trade for a corner by the deadline. Like, is Roger McCreary definitely better than Brandon Echols? I certainly wouldn't love trading a draft pick for McCreary at this point. Tyreek Woolen, who's or Reek Woolen, who's been outcasted by Mike McDonald there in Seattle. Is he going to be much better than Brandon Echols? Like, I don't think that they're going to trade for a corner. I think it's possible they trade for Ridley. I think Tennessee probably doesn't want to keep around a pretty much 30-year-old kind of older player on a big contract when, frankly, Cam Ward has had better connections with other people in that receiver room. I think they want to get younger. I think they want to get less expensive, and getting rid of Calvin Ridley can help them do that. Plus, they can get, I think, a decent draft pick for him. So if I'm Tennessee, I'm probably trying to shop Calvin Ridley. And if I'm the Steelers, I mean, Ridley's an amazing route runner and a great deep threat. He doesn't have the best hands in the world, so just keep that in mind. But he's got good size, really great speed, great acceleration, and really good route running as well. So I would certainly take him. Then we got JT Clover says, there's been some talk on X about Minka. Would you make a trade before the deadline for about a fourth? And would he want to come back? Pretty sure because he was traded away from the Steelers this year that the Steelers can't trade for him this season. I think that's a rule where you can't trade for players that you've traded away in the same league year. Pretty sure that's the case. I think they would have to release Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers to be eligible to bring him back, at least this season. They can trade for him next offseason if they're going to unload him then, but I think until the new – if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think they're eligible to trade for him before the deadline. Minka's a good player, man. I think he's actually played pretty well in Miami this year. Good for him. I think, he's had a big bounce-back year this year, and, if they're not going to just cut him. So I think he may get traded before the deadline, but JT, I would say it's probably pretty unlikely that they end up that he ends up on the Steelers at any point this season. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who is the Steelers MVP halfway through the season? Is it Jaylen Warren? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it somebody else? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Thank you so much for all the great questions this week, guys. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, before we head out here, we'll stay live as long as the super chats keep coming. But tonight we've got, are we going to talk about this one first or the? All right, so tonight's matchup on Thursday Night Football, Vikings-Chargers. We'll just talk about this one for a little bit here. This one, it's worth watching, all right, because
I feel like this is a toss-up.
Well, but listen, man, I'm not going to make any declarative statements about Thursday Night Football. Right?
Yeah, I think we've been wrong on almost all.
If the last 3 weeks have taught us anything, it's that Thursday night is the most unpredictable night in football. All right, so who knows? Maybe Carson Wentz looks like an MVP tonight. like who knows what we're going to see tonight? I believe it's in Los Angeles, and Justin Herbert.
Minnesota.
Is it in Minnesota?
I believe so. That's because I got this one.
No, I think it's in L.A.
This graphic from ESPN for the preview.
I think it's in L.A. It is in L.A.
It is in L.A.?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yep, it's in L.A. And they're getting Khalil Mack back. It sounds like they're getting Joe Alt back for tonight as well.
It sounded like he was active.
Yeah, so I think that the Chargers with Justin Herbert and all those guys, I think that one you might want to take the under, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think the defenses are going to play pretty well tonight. But then again, it's Thursday night. Who knows? It might be 50-49 tonight for all we know.
Or Sperry was wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to make any kind of declarative statements. I think the Chargers are the better team, but you just never know on Thursday night. I'm excited.
Because I believe the Chargers will win, but
yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not putting any money on this game tonight. I can tell you that.
So I did look this up. So an NFL team cannot trade for a player they previously traded away for 2 years.
For 2 years. All right, so I thought it was just 1 year. But, yeah, so Steelers can't trade for Minka. All right, so that's a rule. So we can just shut that one down. But then, obviously on Sunday, we've got the Packers Ponzi, and we can just talk about this matchup here for a little bit. And I think what it comes down to for the Pittsburgh Steelers is, can the defense have a bounce-back performance?
I think Rodgers will obviously, try to want to get his revenge as much as he can, and I think he'll light it up. Apparently, he's been the scout team quarterback for the Packers.
Yeah, because he understands their system. He understands Matt LaFleur's system. So I think Aaron Rodgers definitely gives this defense a competitive advantage. Now, obviously, LaFleur knows what Rodgers likes to do too. So I think the Rodgers advantage is a little bit better though. So we'll see what ends up happening. Rodgers has been getting a lot of reps this week, first team reps with the offense and scout team reps. So he's been busy. He's been a busy bee getting ready for this game.
He really wants to win this one.
And, that he said it himself. I don't think he sees it as necessarily a revenge game. I think that, it's not like the Jets where there was clear animosity between him and that organization. He hates Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
He felt disrespected by him and their new GM, and he wanted to stick it to them in their building. All right. I think this is different. I think that, he was probably disappointed, certainly at the time when they drafted Jordan to replace him. And he's probably a little bit upset that he couldn't retire a Packer if he wanted to play as long as he wanted to play. And, maybe, but I think he's probably forgiven those guys a lot for that. He had a lot of great years in Green Bay.
I feel like with more of Rodgers, he kind of understood the business side of the NFL because of what happened with him and Favre.
Yeah.
And I think, Love talked about it a lot, saying that, Rodgers certainly helped him out in his development. Yeah.
And, Rodgers and Love are very friendly. I mean, I don't know if they're hang out in the offseason kind of buddies, but they have a high level of respect for each other. They're very friendly with each other. Apparently they were texting last week about some shared opponents that Love has coming up that the Steelers have already played, and asking some questions on those guys. So they're still in communication. They've been talking about how they're going to swap jerseys at the end of this game. So obviously, there's not animosity between Rodgers and the Packers. It's not something where it's like, I got to stick it to the Green Bay Packers.
The guy who replaced me.
Yeah, it's more about, all right, I want to show them that I still got it. I want to show Jordan and I want to show Matt that I'm still the master and Jordan is still the apprentice. Like, it's a little bit of that, but it's not like I hate the Packers. I want to show them they made a huge mistake. And, I'm going to, if Matt LaFleur wants to come shake my hand after the game, I'm going to swat it away. Like, no, it's not like that.
It's not like that.
All right, it's not like Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, for example, so
Twitter beef all along.
Or Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith, for that matter. But I won't touch that. But, man, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have a shot in this game. I really do. I think that the defense is going to have a little bit of an advantage because Rodgers knows that LaFleur offense inside out and backwards. I think that Green Bay's kind of nickel-based defense is going to be forced to play a style and a brand of football they're not used to, playing heavier and slower against Pittsburgh's jumbo personnel looks.
I think we're going to see Parsons in a little bit more of his rookie year role with the Cowboys. He's kind of being on the field as that linebacker. And I mean, if they move him around, that's going to be dangerous for the Steelers. But, I mean, we'll see if they use him because, I mean, they've been taking him out on early downs for running downs.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what they end up doing.
They have the chess pieces.
But
there's a lot of questionable people.
But Lucas Van Ness needs to play this week, too, in order for them to feasibly do that.
Exactly.
Because if he doesn't play, then you just got to put Micah at defensive end. So.
Yep.
I'm looking at this matchup, man. I know a lot of people are going to be like Green Bay's a legit Super Bowl contender. Steelers are not because they lost to the Bengals last week. Therefore, they're going to lose. But Steelers are home. They can run the football against Green Bay. All right. I think Rodgers knows that team inside out and backwards. And I think the defense is going to take advantage of that in that regard. And they're going to know a lot of the formations and a lot of the checks and they're going to have a really good idea of what the Packers are going to try to do to them this week. And hopefully they make some of those adjustments that we talked about, rushing with 4 more, playing less man-free coverage. And hopefully they can get this defense playing at a really solid level in front of a national audience. Because you get a win against Green Bay, all of a sudden, like people start talking
Super Bowl contenders again.
Yeah, people start talking about the Steelers as a legitimate team in this conference
coming
again.
Off a mini bye. I feel like
and whenever you give Tomlin extra time, he tends to have a really good game plan.
Yeah, and especially with the advantage they already have with Rodgers.
100%. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this game, Ponzi. I think they're going to win it. And another good piece of news today is that Andrew Filipponi picked the Packers to win. So I mean, like, fantastic.
We love you, Pony.
Thank you.
We love you, Pony.
Just please pick against us for the rest of the season so we can go on a generational Eagles-type run for the rest of the season. Please.
I mean, it's
all
crazy.
Right? Please.
I mean, if you look up a lot of Andrew Filipponi on Twitter, some of the things that he's
It's a lot of wrong. It's a lot of wrong.
And especially a lost bet recently. Mm-hmm. That was
it's
very crazy.
Nipples pierce and all this different
Apparently
stuff.
It's being live streamed, I think.
Yeah, it's a live event at Mike's Bar by PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Great pretzel sticks, by the way, at Mike's Bar. Really great, really great stuff. $2 from JV Free. Well, maybe Ponzi will be going with me to Pittsburgh next year on our training camp trip. Yep. Maybe that'll be what we do. $2 from JV says Arch Manning is tier 2, minimum 3. Good show. I don't think he's coming out. So. I probably would have put him in my tier 3. But like even then, he looked pretty good against Oklahoma. After that, he was like, and after that, like last week, bad game against Kentucky, and he hasn't looked good. And really, much of this season, except for the second half of Red River, Arch Manning has not played well.
And I will say this to a lot of the UT guys. I know he did make a couple good throws against Kentucky, but he also had like 20 bad throws.
Yeah,
it's kind of like if we get Red River Arch second half, the rest of the season.
Might be the first round pick.
But yeah,
might be the first overall pick.
Based off his name alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just he's way too inconsistent for me right now.
He needs another year in school.
Yeah.
He needs at least one more year in school.
He has the talent.
Yeah. So we'll see on him, but I don't think he's coming out.
No, I don't think so.
I think the only way he would have came out this year anyways is if he was like a bona fide either number 1 pick or like at least top 5 pick.
And I really think...
And he's just not that. And I don't think there's any way he could get there.
If you look at the top 5 teams, and not saying, anything against them, but like look at the top 5 teams, there's a good chance that he probably would have looked at those teams and be like, all right, I'm not going to go out anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it was Cleveland or New Orleans, he would have gone because his family's very close with those two.
With Rattler too.
Exactly. So like, It's not going to happen. He's going to go back to he might even have to transfer out. Like, who knows how bad this thing is going to get for Arch Manning.
There's a lot of memes about him transferring out.
Exactly. So that's going to be it for our show here, guys. If you guys want to join us on Sunday, we are going to be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Over an hour, almost an hour and a half of pregame coverage for Sunday Night Football. Then we got live play-by-play and analysis of the game itself. And then we got post-game coverage for you guys as well. We have the largest Steelers watch parties anywhere on the YouTube platform. So make sure you guys join us, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Steelers versus Packers. It's going to be a hell of a night, man. One of the more highly anticipated games of the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. And I have a feeling, Ponzi. I have a feeling. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this. I feel like this game we're gonna look back on this game, and it's gonna be a turning point in this season.
I hope so.
I think they're gonna play a good game. I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna win a lot more of the tougher games on their schedule than people think. Indianapolis has really struggled in Pittsburgh over the years, even though
Chargers, I believe.
Chargers on the road on Sunday night. That might be a tougher game, but we'll see on them. The Bills, I think the Steelers actually have a pretty good chance against the Bills because Buffalo can't defend the run. So I think the Steelers can actually keep up with Buffalo, especially because they're at home in that game. And then, if Baltimore can't figure things out on defense, Steelers could be able to run the football on them. And I think that they'll win at least one game against Baltimore. Lamar usually, if he has to throw it more than I think it's 25 times, he loses against the Steelers. So hopefully they have a better plan against Derrick Henry this time around this season because
he hasn't looked that good either.
Yeah, he's fumbled a lot. So the thing with the Ravens is that they got to get their defense figured out. I don't know if they will. They played pretty well against Los Angeles before the bye, so maybe that's kind of their turning point there, and they're getting Lamar back this week. So Steelers got to continue to stack wins. Hopefully the Ravens keep losing, and we're just going to keep chugging along here on Steelers Talk as the season goes on. So we appreciate you guys stopping by here today. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and until Sunday night, here we go, Steelers.